Oh, there it is up on the screen.
Yep.
This version is still kind of like the old version with a lot of just big minions, and then once you happen to stick one, you can Conjurer's Calling it.
Rogue as his first choice deck, but now we see the anti-mirror match, in my opinion. Korean player and had a ton of success in the past few years, but as I said, it's best of 3, so we are not playing best of 5 that we've played in the past. So if you lose your first game, you're going to lose one more, and the
Stater would be kind of a nod to that.
Right, and here we go. This is one of the secondary deck here with Grom Hellscream, bit of a throwback there, along with Alex Strash shuffled in. But what do you think of at least the initial matchup?
Interestingly enough, I think the extra taunts will help a little bit, particularly against Bomb Warrior. Not
but we'll stay up late and watch it and see how Hunter pans out. But for now, let's kick off game number 1 of Asia Pacific Hearthstone Grandmasters. Surrender versus Staz. Surrender on the Warrior, Staz on the Summoner Mage. Let's see how it goes. Does have Doomsayer in the opening hand, but most importantly, Conjurer's Calling and a giant IC language hacker.
Yeah, kind of almost exactly what you want against Warrior. All you're missing is a Book Specters, and then you'll be able to slam that giant on turn 3.
Already just going for the Mage Discover, and for me at least, Spellbender looks fantastic because it helps dodge the the shield block, shield slam that can happen. So it might allow you to play a giant on curve, because I feel like normally versus Warrior, you might not want to do that because a single giant feels susceptible to a lot of the removal that's available, and then you've just thrown a giant away for nothing.
Agreed. Yeah, the protection against shield slam is very interesting. It looks like Staz agrees. It's interesting enough, the other two options weren't actually useless either. Elemental Vacation, if you wait a couple turns, you might be able to go Elemental Vacation, Giant, Coin Conch Calling a turn earlier than you'd have to wait for turn 5, where you'd actually have to spend 3 mana on the Giant and then coin out the Conjurer's Calling. And the Ray of Frost, if you expect a minion on 3 or a minion on 4, or even later on in the game, if you're trying to lock the opponent out and just kill him, the Ray of Frost could help do that. But it looks like Spellbender's going to be the pick.
Yep, I do like the Spellbender pick myself. And a small note as well, in terms of the Evocation, it works, if you imagine it, like an Innovate for Mountain Giant in the deck. That's mainly how it works, at least in this version specifically, as he isn't playing the Mana Cyclone. So it is just effectively make the Giant cost 1 less.
Interesting choice here. So obviously at 3 mana you can choose to just play out the Spellbender. You could also even choose to play out the Doomsayer in case you want to stop your opponent's surrender from developing anything else. But if you pass this turn, just spend your mana pinging. Next turn the Giant becomes 4 mana and you could play that.
Yeah, it's a real tough one, isn't it? Because for me, I would want the Spellbender on live to protect the Giant, but it delays the Giant play. So It's kind of a weird backwards option. There was also, to a reasonable extent, just a coin Twilight Drake if you really want to save the Giants for later on and just get a threat out that can start chipping this armor, and something that Surrender does have to consider. You can't just let a Twilight Drake punch you in the face a few turns in a row.
Yeah, 4 attacks, no joke. It's not just Priest that doesn't want to get hit by 4 attack. Well, the Augmented Elic pickup. It's possible Surrender's considering if he wants to play that out or develop the Orange Caliber.
What now?
I find it really tricky, as no Bomb Warrior specialist myself at all, but how you decide you've gained enough from the Elic, or if you decide that you can play it as a 3-mana 3/4, which is sometimes good, right? You don't always have to combo it with the bomb activations, but now with Weapon, it does blow maybe 1 to 2 charges of this weapon that he already has equipped, but maybe getting the weapon equipped now and then just setting up for an Elic is as good as it's going to get, because it's unlikely, I would say, that anything else is going to be used tons in the near future. There is the Ziliax, of course, and then the removal of the Dynomatic. But I think I just like locking the weapon in now. Everything else feels a little bit weak.
I think Surrender might be concerned that in Staz's primary list he has 2 Oozes and a Harrison Drones.
Right.
So three
he
cards
does not appreciate weapons.
Exactly. Weapons are not his friend. He actually chose the shield block, which is kind of interesting here. I'd have expected to try and get some tempo on the board, maybe play out the Elic even without using its effect.
I guess the thought plan of, well, there can't be a Mountain Giant this turn because the Spellbender was played, which means that he doesn't need a minion on the board plus X to actually remove it. It's like plus Ziliax on 5 or plus the Dynomatic. So because of that, he isn't afraid of a Twilight Drake. So he just thought, I'll just draw a card, gain some armor, might draw Shield Slam as well, which makes an answer easy in the following turn. So, or at least as far as he's aware. He obviously doesn't know his Spellbender yet.
Could also have been just testing for secrets. See, maybe I just hit a counterspell.
Yeah, maybe he does, yeah.
Light the fuses!
to go for the safe removal play. If he did it any other way around, then maybe the Dynamatic hits one of his own minions if he gets something down next turn. But Dynamatic just bringing the Twilight Drake down to its level, being able to be traded off pretty easily as a 4-3. And also, small note as well, even if the Dynamatic's cleared off, he does have the Wrench Caliber that actually kills the Twilight Drake regardless. So pretty nice setup there for Surrender.
There must be a way.
Staz has all the choices now, and what do you make of this? There can be removal with the Scale Worm, but there could just be a Giant played after seeing a Dynamatic.
It's possible. So if he plays the Giant, I'd want him to hit face as well to knock down the armor, so that Shield Slam isn't an option. Surrender's not running Execute in his list, so he's not afraid of just the Dynamatic bumping the Giant. A Scale Worm, I think, is a good answer to the Dynamatic, but I'm not sure that answering the Dynamatic's that relevant. Obviously, there's just a one of Zilliax, but playing the Scale Worm and trading opens you up to just Warpath clearing your board.
That is true, yeah. It's kind of a tough one. He's going to trade and develop the Giant, and I think the only reason this is happening is because of Spellbender, because if he didn't have that secret live, I think you just hold the Giant there and play anything else and just wait for Conjurer's Calling. Like, you don't really need to, rush this matchup, at least in my opinion, especially because he's playing the sort of, big derpy dragon list with so many minions in it. I think you don't have to rush. But he did just go for getting that Giant down. The Spellbender is going to protect it from most of the threats that Surrender has. So just going to play Harrison and draw a card.
Yeah, makes sense. The only spell in Surrender's deck that actually procs Spellbender is Shield Slam, so that's actually one of the best secrets you can pick up in this mirror.
It's actually pretty crazy, isn't it? Okay, and now, does Staz just go? He can afford to. He has 2 Conjurer's Callings in hand, which does have Twin Spell, which is effectively 4 Conjurer's Callings he can play this game already from hand. He could just, say, trade the Harrison or go face, and then double Conjurer's Calling if he really wanted to. That would generate a lot of extra minions for him, but does he need to go that far in? Can he play even slower?
I'd be very surprised to see him play no Conjurer's Calling. I think at least one's coming down.
Oh, yeah, I feel like you have to play one. I mean, you've got a Giant on the board, come on.
But yeah, after that he has to decide how much he wants to come into the board. Surrender knows it's not Counterspell. We saw Shield Block being played and it didn't proc the secret, so Brawl is a possibility if you extend with 2 Conjurer's Callings. Scale Worm.
Okay, with the trade.
Right.
Surely we're seeing coin. There we go. I was wondering if he was going to Conjurer's Calling, maybe even twice, which could be overkill, but use the 2 separate twin spells to keep the card count high for Astromancer next turn.
Right.
It was just a small consideration. I didn't actually see what the card count was, but yeah, he did go with that play instead, and now he has the 7/8 Taunt, along with a fresh Giant and a 5/3, so I think this is the first turn that Staz is saying, okay, Surrender, do you have a Brawl in hand?
Yep, now you start checking for answers.
Big deal as well is he only runs 1 Brawl in this initial list.
Yeah.
So it's as unlikely as it's ever going to be that it's in Surrender's hand right now, and you can see Surrender's kind of like, I know there's a secret that isn't, it's not Splitting Image because he killed a minion.
Right.
He knows it's not Counterspell because he's shield blocked. So he has to be thinking worst case scenario. It's unlikely with choices that Staz is picking Ice Barrier or Vaporize, for example.
Right.
It's about to get the bad news. The eyebrow raised and a bit of a shake of the head from Surrender as he's about to get hit very hard in the face by Staz next turn.
And with this armor of Shield Slam, there's no way to clear anything else on the board. Militia Commander plus the weapon is only 7 damage. Has to decide how to spend the rest of his mana. He could either keep... I think Shield Block's the right call. I don't think you're answering this board without finding your 1 Brawl, so... oh my god.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
The Brawl he did find, so Surrender's ready for next turn. And now, the big question is, because Staz didn't see the Brawl that he knew Surrender would have played if he had it, is he going to go deeper down the rabbit hole
and how deep
and say,
down the rabbit hole?
And let's go full Alice in Wonderland here, fill up the board and go face. But I will say, even if he did, he still has a lot of juice left in the tank. I think I would like to see him maybe 1 more Conjurer's Calling, but hold the Astromancer.
Interesting. I actually want to play the Astromancer this turn. Conjurer's Calling is a lot easier even after the Brawl. With 3 mana left over, there's not a lot Surrender can do post-Brawl if you happen to have drawn it.
I'm just worried that if the 5/3 survives, the Scale Worm survives the Brawl, Or even if Surrender could play a minion and brawl, and then they could win.
Oh,
and
that's
then
a fair
you're
point.
struggling to use up the Conjurer's Calling, whereas I think you have 3 Conjurer's Calling left. You may as well throw when you've got 2 more, and you still have an Astromancer.
Actually, that's a fair point. One of the Conjurer's Calling is still a twin spell. So you
Exactly,
could use,
exactly.
Yeah.
He has 3 in hand, effectively. Which means, you just use 1 twin spell and then hold Astromancer in case he brawls. Because he either brawls, you refill with Astro, or he doesn't brawl, you've won.
Oh,
So
this is interesting. He's holding back here. I think part of this lends to the fact that Alex Strauss is in hand, so he knows he doesn't need to just kill him straight from 30, which he's already succeeding to do, by the way. But if he just keeps the board state kind of like this with 2 or 3 minions, eventually Alex Strauss will just kill him.
yeah, that's true. There's not much you can do, even with a bit of armor. If you set down to core health 15, well, you already see there's a lot of damage on board as it is, so it's going to make up the difference pretty quickly. And again, Surrender's going to have to make a tough choice here.
So with both shield slams gone in a weapons project, activating the second shield slam is very difficult.
I'm wondering whether he just has to play the Clockwork Goblin and brawl.
Oh,
say I need
surely.
to win the brawl.
I think that's just the line. Everything else, nothing else works, right?
Then you've got, I would say, a 50% chance at an acceptable outcome. Either your Goblin wins or the Scaleworm wins, which is still bad, but not horrendous. But if you brawl first, well, the minion that lives you're doing nothing about anyway. So I think he does need to play that Clockwork out. Okay, he's going for Alec. Oh, Alec brawl, sure.
Well, this makes sense. He's seen a scale worm, so this is a bit better if the Elec wins the brawl because the bomb follow-up.
That's true.
Biggest minion lives.
And now there's
Oh
Mr.
my.
Khadgar.
Right on time.
Yep. And this is just... Look, this is why the matchup's tough. This is why this version, especially of the Mage deck, was built, was to beat Warrior. Like, how do you remove all of this? He can Khadgar Conjurer's Calling to create umpteen giants, effectively. Then, if all that somehow goes away with the 1 brawl used, he can Astromancer Conjurer's Calling. Then he can Rabble Bouncer Conjurer's Calling. It never ends, Language Hacker.
This looks like lights out. I can't think of anything that Surrender could come up with in his deck that answers this.
How beautiful. And this is where you've got to ask the question, right? Already, game number 1 of this specialist format and of Grandmasters League is that as Surrender concedes, everyone put everyone else on Warrior or Rogue. So some players brought Mage, and if they ran into a Warrior, honestly, it often looks like that.
Yeah.
There is not a lot most Warriors can game number 2. I spot a big Game Hunter and a Super Collider as well, Language Hacker. So Surrender has moved on to his secondary deck. Let's see how it works out.
Looks like in the mulligan he kept the big game hunter and the super ladder as well.
Super Collider is a terrifying card to play against if you're the Mage. But what do you make of Staz's opening hand? He does have the Conjurer's Call, but what about the rest of it?
Gonna be a slow start. I mean, the deck doesn't have that much card draw, so when you're not on the coin, as Staz is right now, Giant's not coming down for a long time. Fortunately, he has 2 Twilight Drakes. They will be a little weaker than they normally are if he would be on coin, obviously because the hand size is smaller. But this is usually how the Mage games start off. If you don't have the Fire Tree Witch Doctor at the start, you're just hero powering for a turn or 2.
Yeah, it feels a little bit awkward as well because as you hero powering each other, the Warrior is actually gaining a lead because of the armor and the use it can make of the armor. It means that when you eventually do get a minion down, it's ever so more likely to be removed. So it's kind of just a feels bad moment for Staz, but I think being able to go Twilight Drake into Twilight Drake is going to be very, very powerful against some of the turn 4/turn 5 removal that Surrender's going to have.
Surrender has to decide here if he wants to just armor up, get the value out of that, or try to shield block and find perhaps a shield slam. Spend the mana, gain the armor now.
Yeah, going to shield block now. I honestly wondered whether he was going to consider, or whether I would consider, just coining out Wrench Caliber and start stacking that damage on, because Super Collider in the matchup, although there's a lot of weapon removal, of course, is often a weapon you want to just sit and... It's more of a threat being equipped as opposed to being used a lot of the time, because when it's equipped, your opponent can't really play much into it, whereas... once it's used up, yeah, it's done its job, but it doesn't really stop your opponent doing much, so I don't know. We'll see what he does. Maybe the Wrench Caliber is going to be used to draw out some of that weapon removal.
Staz here with the Book of Spectres draw. I was considering, I think, if you wanted to play that instead to try and find something more appealing, but I think Twilight Drake on 4 is just good enough for now.
Yeah, it would require, armor up, shield slam, to be able to clear off. And if your opponent shield slams your 4/7 Twilight Drake,
Pretty happy.
that's kind of a win for Staz at this point.
One thing to note was that Staz's opening hand was, I believe, Voodoo Doll, Twilight Drake, something that'll come into play if Hexlord Malacrast comes down. If he switched to the
That's a good
secondary
shout.
list.
I'm glad someone's keeping track of that language hacker because I'm definitely not. Or at least I wasn't. Yeah, this is
This is an interesting spot.
Watching this game now and just the way the matchup is, you realize how savage the format is. Because Surrender lost a bad matchup game 1. His tech, his secondary deck he is using now, has to perform, or he just loses, and that's just the series over, done, and dusted. So a lot of pressure on Surrender now.
Plays out the Militia Commander, trade into the Twilight Drake, weaken it, hopefully set up for a Orange Caliber next turn, or perhaps if another minion is played, maybe even a Super Collider swing.
Also, funnily enough, it still kind of 1-for-1 to Twilight Drake at this point, right? Because if you're, again, on the other side, like the Shield Slam being played, if Staz pings this turn, Surrender's probably reasonably happy about that, because it means there's no bigger things coming out to play. There's no Mountain Giant. There's nothing else that's going to cause too much of a threat, at least.
So if there was a Mountain Giant in Staz's hand right now, with 7 cards in total, so 6 excluding the Mountain Giant still wouldn't be playable this turn. It would cost 6 mana. I think by doing this, Surrender is hoping, I mean, like you said, if Staz comes out with a ping, not much else will be developed. Surrender's pretty happy with that. But if something else is developed, he can even use the remaining Militia Commander to swing into the new minion and maybe use Super Collider to trade off both.
We are going to see Staz use the Conjurer's Call in here. What's in the box? The 5/2, I can't remember the name of, but it is a demon with Rush.
Portal Keeper, perhaps?
This is all on you. I can't remember the name. I've admitted this now. It's on you to save the day, language hacker. But also the 4/4 Ogre. So, although not the most threatening minions in the world, 2 minions are better than 1 most of the time. So
these will die to a Super Collider swing, but the health, the combined health is out of range of a Dynamatic. So there's very specific answers. Just barely.
The point is here, though, as well, that Surrender does have to do something about this, because although the health is relatively low, the attack value is pretty high for Staz here, like 9 damage hitting him next turn if Surrender doesn't deal with this. Like, that's just a lot.
And there's going to be more coming down.
Yeah. I think it's... Maybe this is just the way the 2 games have rolled out so far for Staz, and maybe just the way his second deck's built. But I feel like he's never not had insane value every single turn of each game so far. Okay, there's Super Collider, nod from Staz. Right, he knows what he's up against.
Ooh.
I like playing that on curve.
So this is interesting. Staz could play up the Unseen Saboteur, but he knows that Surrender has coin in hand, so he might want to wait until he sees the coin being used, and then hopefully pull out something important. 6 mana, Book of Spectres, leave him.
Ooh, that'll do.
Interesting. I'm curious if he waits, however, on the Acidic Swamp Ooze. His Twilight Drake's big enough that he can just play it out now, but if he plays the Ooze, you don't really develop that much this turn. You're not going to tempo out a Cattier behind it.
Yeah, the important part is he isn't playing an Astromancer this turn, which means, as you said, that there's either play was going to be only 1 minion, which
Right.
Super Collider is ineffective unless it's proccing and execute, that I believe even in Surrender's secondary list he does not run.
No executes.
So, yeah, I don't mind the Twilight Drake this turn. In fact, I'm kind of with you on that one.
It's interesting. We'll see what he chooses, but if he chooses to go Twilight Drake, that means he's not necessarily committing to Ooze next turn, and we see the Acidic Swamp Ooze come down. This sets up for the bigger Astromancer next turn, which puts 2 threats on the board, both of which are much higher mana than Twilight Drake, which will let him efficiently use the Conjurer's Callings. So I think
There was a lot of options that turn.
There were a
because
lot.
I still kind of liked Unseen Saboteur, mainly because it would require exactly, I guess that's the flaw, right? It requires exactly the Dynamatic to kill it off, but Surrender does have 2 in this list, okay.
Dynamatics?
Yeah.
Yep.
I was just checking, there's so many variations of these warriors that everyone's playing. Just got to keep our eyes tight on that one.
I think I like this setup a bit better. You get really good use out of Astromancers, and his one of Super Collider has just been destroyed, so Astromancer's going to be very, very difficult to deal with.
Yeah. The only weird part is if Surrender doesn't kill this Ooze, which he doesn't have to, it's not really a huge threat, then the Astromancer... the Ooze makes Astromancer better, but also Brawl better.
True.
Because there's a low roll chance for Staz, right, if the Ooze wins the Brawl. So it's just kind of a funny one, right? You set up a better Astromancer, which sets up a better Brawl in a roundabout way. It's very odd. He's going to clear it off with Wrench Caliber, though. There's one bomb shuffled into the deck. Finally, we see some bombs.
Interesting. So he's going armor up instead of playing Town Crier. There's no Shield Slam in hand. Obviously, the 2 armor won't help him clear much at this point, but it could conceal the fact that there would be another Rush Minion drawn. Because if Surrender had played out the Town Crier, Staz would know, okay, well, there's either Militia Commander or Ziliax in his hand.
Oh, okay. Onyxia.
Daughter of Deathwing.
Ah, you know your lore.
What if that's what she says when she comes onto the field?
Oh, is it? Oh, I didn't hear that. Did you know that anyway, or was it purely voice line?
I knew it.
But see, don't try and make me look stupid. I've had enough of that with Saul in the past. This is a new era here, Language Hacker. Come on.
Okay. Well, Big Game Hunter kept in the open hands, looking really, really tempting now.
It's not the 8/8 Surrender was planning on BGHing,
Hey,
but it'll do.
We'll take what we can get.
Yeah, it'll do.
The problem with Big Game Hunter is that there's still this 5/5 left over, and you know there's at least the second half of a Conjurer's Calling in Staz's hand, because we've seen him use it on the Twilight Drake earlier on.
Yeah. Do you remember when BGH was 3 mana? That card was OP.
That card was powerful. I mean, it sees play at 5 mana, so...
There's the bomb going off pretty early for Staz there. Not too impactful. Surrender probably doesn't really care that much that the bomb went off or not, to be honest. He doesn't have Dr. Boom in hand, so he wouldn't have ticked anyway for those extra boom bots. But mainly the health isn't really an issue. Surrender just needs to just secure himself here and not just get run over by big dudes. And also there's no extra bombs available for Surrender to even play. So it's not like he can think, okay, I'm in a terrible spot. I'm going to stack up like 4 bombs and hope I just get him. You know, and hope they proc.
Right. Honestly, the way these hands are looking, that might be what Surrender needs to do to find a win. Staz looks like he's not going to run out of gas anytime soon. Eventually, the Omega Devastators will be online for Surrender, so that'll help like hugely. But for now, he's going to be struggling to deal with the pressure.
Yeah, Omega Devastator, the stronger version of BGH in every circumstance, I think. Oh, okay, bit of a swing and a miss there. Only get a Jan'alai, and no, Jan'alai does not summon Ragnaros once.
So this is actually a big deal because normally Warpath, you can use it to clear something, Astromancer plus something after 10 mana, and it lets you use Warpath as a clear. But with Staz's hand size, with Twilight Drake being large, Mountain Giants being huge, and even just Astromancer pulling something that's 7 mana, the fact that Warpath can be used here to clear board from Surrender's side is huge, and might let him get to that turn 10 where the Omega Devastators can help him swing back.
It does something.
Yeah, it does something.
Normally it doesn't. Especially, again, running a no-execute list. I saw some players actually teching in Spell Zerker for Warpath.
Yeah.
To deal with Nomi,
Nomi,
right? Yeah. That's kind of just a funny tech, right?
Yeah, it's cute. I saw someone running the new 2-mana Fountain Reservoir, or whatever it's called.
The 0/6?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar thing.
Yeah. So right now, as you rightly said, the Devastators are what's going to potentially win Surrender, or at least secure, make him survive a bit longer in this game. But he has to get to 10 mana. So yeah, you're right. This clear is huge. The fact that a tiny bit of breathing room here.
Oh, he's going for Dynamatic instead.
Oh, okay.
This is actually right. It gives you tempo.
And bear in mind, you can't coin into an Omega Devastator.
Oh, no.
It does not work. You need 10 base mana. You cannot use the
You
coin.
can, but you'll be disappointed.
Oh, yeah, okay, you can. You'll just feel bad afterwards.
Yeah, this feels much stronger from Surrender's side. It lets him save the weapon swing, and has a 3/4 in play. So now he might be able to deal with the next minion that Staz plays out. And
also, as well, the second there's a mech that's on the board, yes, Dr. Boom's not live, so they aren't going to have rush or anything, but there can be an assembly into, say, a magnetic minion to put it on top of the already live Dynamatic on the board, which means, suddenly one Ziliax away from a decent trade, to be completely honest.
well, there's one on the deck. You can 10 cry for it.
That's very true as well.
It's a 50-50. There's a commander left in the deck as well.
Staz has all the mana worth of hand in the world.
So
just has to work out what to play.
Yeah, Astromancer will spawn a 9-mana minion.
Another throwback. Onyxian Cenarius. Wow. Old school. Not really the most impactful minion, because I believe 9 mana are actually super strong in this current expansion.
9 mana, yeah.
Or in the current rotation.
There's very few duds at 9 mana. I don't think there are any. Cenarius might be the dud.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, Cenarius is probably one of the worst, which means that, yes, it's the worst, but if a 5/8 is the worst minion, then it's still okay.
It's reasonable.
I'll take it. One more turn till these Devastators alive, and no, I'm not joking you. He can play both and deal 2 times 10 damage to do 2 different minions, effectively clearing them up next turn. And that's going to be Surrender's stabilization point. I think he's just digging as well. He's just after Dr. Boom.
The Silex is big because it lets him... Exactly. Magnetizing into the Dynamantic lets him clear the Cenarius, which is scarier than the Astromancer for Conjurer's Calling.
And heal up some of that health as well. It's going to be nice. Just put him a little bit higher. Maybe he survives 1 extra turn, 1 extra big minion swing. He's just gaining at least 6 health. This potentially goes up to full if this Dynamatic gets traded into.
A couple of ways that Staz can deal with this now. He has the 2 Voodoo Dolls. He just drew Scale Worm he could use to trade and ping with. Using the Scale Worm would mean that Surrender would gain 3 health. I don't know if 3 health is that relevant at this moment.
Observe and reflect.
Funnily enough, he could even play Unseen Saboteur, try to rip a brawl.
He's like 1 mana away from a really nice turn, I think.
What are you looking at?
So he could, obviously the extra mana, but the Scale Hide ping trade, right? Get rid of the Dynamatic.
Right.
And then just attack, and then just go deep. Just go Khadgar into Conjurer's Call.
Ooh.
He could still do something similar with this Voodoo Doll instead. It's just kind of the same thing.
In some matchups you can go Voodoo Doll Conjurer's Calling on it, but I think against the Warriors you want to get a bit more value out of Conjurer's Calling.
Oh yeah, I mean Khadgar's got Conjurer's Calling on the 5/5 now.
Yeah. Oh no, I was just talking about what Staz was doing,
sure.
pinging his Voodoo Doll instead of using the Conjurer's Calling.
A lot of the time it can be you create a scary moment for your opponent if you do it on 3, right? If they play a threat, you Voodoo Doll it on 3. If they don't trade,
right,
then you can actually just Conjurer's Call and gain the board against some more aggressive decks. It's a nice little trick.
So interestingly, Staz held back on the Conjurer's Calling, and I think this is a nod to sort of say, hey, if you have a Mega Devastator, you probably have to use it now. I'm hitting your face for 10. And if he had gone Conjurer's Calling, well, there's some fresh minion on the board for a Mega Defender. He's already seen 1 Warpath. Unfortunately, Surrender has the second one now, and he's actually able to deal with this board. But I think this was a nod from Staz to say, I want you to use your Mega Devastator on a subpar target.
Okay. The worry I've got is the longer this game goes on, although there's tons of juice available, the second Surrender draws Dr. Boom, the hero card. Oh, not sure if you guys felt that stall then, but we did, but it doesn't matter. But yeah, as soon as Surrender draws the Dr. Boom, then there are some problems, because suddenly rushing mechs and discoverable mechs can kind of deal with that. Surrender felt that brawl being used.
That's got to sting.
And yet, just a lesson for all those people who have not done that interaction yet. Brawl does a whole lot of nothing versus 1 minion, but still is forcibly played because of the Saboteur. So, big deal there for Staz.
It works on spells that don't even have targets. Like Dire Frenzy, for example. If you don't have a beast, it does nothing.
Yep. Imagine, though, if Staz played the Saboteur and Omega Assembly procs, and Surrender's like, oh,
thanks.
Yeah,
thanks for the 1 mana.
Thank you.
A lot of options here. You could go full board, play both the Mega Devastators. You could Omega Assembly to start if you'd like. See if you can find anything else to play from there. Big Game Hunter not finding a target right now. A second one.
I think the Omega Devastators might be pretty sick, because one thing that Mage does struggle with at the moment is fighting back on board after they've lost it.
Oh yeah.
Right, normally the only way they normally fight back is if it's against some smaller minions, and then you go like giant Khadgar Conjurers. Yes, you can hit me 1 more time, but I have either taunts or big dudes that don't have taunt. Right. But against Warrior, I feel like it's a little bit tricky. So if double Devastator comes out, a 3rd one as well. Yeah, chuck those Devastators out, clear the board, and now suddenly, what does Staz even do to fight back? He doesn't actually have a dragon to be able to proc this Crowd Roaster either. Uh-oh.
This was a powerful swing turn. I'm glad Surrender went for this line. He's seen a Voodoo Doll and a Scale Worm, so there are a few options to clear this.
He can brawl it away with Unseen Saboteur. Oh, if it happens, it'll be really fun.
Raven will be guaranteed. There's only 1 spell.
Yeah, it's just if he plays Unseen Saboteur into this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It would be a guaranteed brawl. Obviously, Staz doesn't know that. So yeah, Crowd Roaster left kind of stranded right now.
Right.
You can go for a defensive option with Safeguard. You could.
But the problem with the defensive options is you just get beat, right? you know it's already dead, and then what are you waiting for that Surrender's not going to cash in on, right? The longer the turns go, the longer Staz has to be very afraid of Dr. Boom.
So you could go Safeguard Conjurer's Calling it, which leaves you with a 0-5 left over to soak some damage.
2/6 drops.
Yeah,
Okay.
2/6 drops and a 0-5 left over. Alternatively, you could just play the Crowd Roaster without the Battle Cry. Oh my.
Watch Surrender's face. There we go.
Oh no.
Wow, Staz is just like, I knew it was going to happen.
And this is what we were talking about before the game started. The Unseemly Saboteurs. I mean, this is exactly what you want to have happen.
This game's so
And
back
it
forth.
won the brawl. This is, oh my goodness.
Well, you know what's scary? In the past 24 hours, this is not the first time you and I have watched and seen Saboteur win a brawl.
Oh,
We
yeah.
saw it on the stream we were watching earlier. And it's kind of nuts. Surrender just scratching his head, whether that was for comic value or not. He does have to think of a way to win this game. It's looking a little bit dicey right now. Omega Devastator number 3 is definitely going to help. But he just needs Dr. Boom. He just needs it.
He's going to forego playing the Omega Assembly here just because he has a 3/3 into 4. Adds up to 10. This is the most aggressive he can be right now. With one bomb left in Staz's deck, with the Clockwork Goblin putting it in now, if you push enough damage, you might be able to get there.
Yeah.
However, with the Ziliax pickup, that's very unlikely to happen now because you can heal back up from Staz's perspective.
I think Ziliax trade Khadgar Conjurer's Go.
Oh yeah, I mean,
That seems pretty good to me since you've played your opponent's brawls for them. You get the heal value.
you've seen both Warpaths too, so even if you have like some medium-sized minions, there's no
Whatever.
answer.
You just need more stuff at this point. And this is why it's a big deal. Like this matchup at this point normally becomes Conjurer's Calling versus Dr. Boom. And Conjurer's Calling wins when they don't have Dr. Boom. Well, I say that. Not the best one in the world, but still, Surrender's unhappy.
But even, that's the thing, oh no. Even with minions that aren't crazy, like the Grubash Berserk and the Faceless Manipulators, it's just enough stuff on board. Nullifier. Curious to see if that'll come down this turn. It doesn't let him make any convenient trade. I mean, it lets him, for example, if he magnetizes the Omega Devastator, he could cleanly kill the 2/7 Grubash Berserker. But I don't think you want to be leaving that 5/5 up. The mage does have a hero power. That can get out of hand really quickly.
Yeah. I wonder if he actually, if anything, Beryllium's the cap hole.
What are you hitting?
Don't know yet, I've not decided.
You could also bump the Demolisher into the 5/5 and then activate the Big Game Hunter in your hand.
That's true. Oh, that's not bad, actually. Yeah, that's not bad.
You can go with Wrench Caliber as well, clean up a Manipulator, and then maybe take a value trade with the Omega Devastator on the Khadgar.
Yeah. Either way, you're killing the Khadgar.
Probably.
I'm signing up to that one. Like, the Khadgar's way too scary, and you know there's Conjurers available too. Looks like he is going to go for this EGH play. I like it. You sold it to me, Language Hacker, there.
It's the most stuff you can remove while developing a 4/2, but
Hey, it kills one of the minions on the board.
yeah.
And also, just shuffling the bomb. Just a small note as well, that Ziliax did put Staz the health total away from a clean bomb kill. So multiples of 5, basically, you have to look out for. Not that it's a huge deal at this second in time, but, you know, if
It could
somehow
become
Surrender
relevant.
shuffles 4 bombs and he goes to 3, well, he could have been at 20 and died instead. So it's all important to keep an eye on.
Observe and
I think at this point, Staz might want to get a bit more value out of this Conjurer's Calling. I don't know if he wants to use it on the Grubash Berserker, because the Grubash Berserker itself, after trading, will go up to 5 attack, which is kind of threaten itself. So he could choose to Rotten Apple Bomb and protect it, or Safeguard and protect it. He could even go Safeguard Conjurer's Calling on this turn, it might be a bit better. A much slower route would be playing the Hexler Malacrast to get back the 2 Twilight Drakes that he had in his opening hand.
Yeah. Oh, it's tough, isn't it? Because he has value, he just doesn't have pressure.
Right. I think the only way he could lose at this point is, like you were saying, if enough bombs happen to be shuffled in over the next few turns, then he draws them all at once.
What about just... Yeah, I think I'm with trade, crowd roaster, Conjurers.
Yeah.
Oh, he's going to go for Hexlord Malacrast. I'll do sound effects.
Do you think he ever pings his Gurubashi to make the weapon swing more difficult for...
Fun. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, I actually agree. I think that was a bit of a missed trick there. Is there that much of a punish for pinging? Like, do you care about 1 health? I don't think so. He could have dealt him 2 extra damage there. Oh, sorry, 1 extra damage. Apologies. Because you don't ping face, right?
Oh, this is a full clear. With the Dr. Boom draw, that Kaboombot in Surrender's hand has Rush And the Death Rattle will kill off the Malacrass, denying the Conjurer's Calling. Oh, this is a big decision point, because now
Can't
he's
hero power.
Yeah.
I think you do it anyway.
I think you have to Kaboom Bot. I don't think you can afford to just deal with 2 8-drops next turn. You already know you have to deal with 2 more Twilight Drakes now.
I wonder... Oh god, these bombs happen quite often, don't they?
They're showing up real quick.
Yeah, not much time between these. I do wonder, though, how much Surrender knows exactly what their Malacrass has. You know, I don't know if he's at 100% on that.
It's true.
But we'll see.
It is a fairly uncommon tech card, so I'm not sure if Surrender's been paying attention to that. He may well have been.
I think it's very easy, and you know more than I do as someone with a much higher playing pedigree than me, and more recent, that it'll be all good and well remembering the first few cards at the start of a game.
Right.
But this game's been going on for a bit, and I think it's very easy with everything else that's happening, especially like the Saboteurs and the Brawls, to forget, like, wait, what were those cards that he started with again? Because one of them he hasn't played. So he doesn't know one of them.
Voodoo Doll hasn't been played yet. So obviously at this point all of these mechs have rushed, so Surrender's trying to figure out which of these he wants to play in combination with or without the hero power. Staz, knowing that the 2 Brawls were gone, decided to play the Safeguard instead of the second Twilight Drake, so that if a Rush minion gets through the Safeguard, there's still 0-5 left over that has to be killed before the other minions can be reached.
Yep, not bad at all. It's going to just throw this in there, protect the Goblin a little bit with the hero power. You rush the Goblin afterwards, of course.
Yep.
To make sure it doesn't die, save a minion there. And most importantly, Surrender wants something to stick to the board so he can Beryllium it. Because one of the problems with the Beryllium Nullifier is the mana cost. So if you have to play it, you have to get a cheap mech. You have to play it and then play Beryllium, which often means you're not hero powering.
Right. Which
Which then makes the turn... You really want to press the hero power every turn with Dr. Boom to get some value on.
Especially this one.
Especially that one.
There could be anything in there. Even a Mechathun.
That's true. I'd take Mechathun right now. Just make a 10-10 and be like, can you kill this?
That's the thing, you need to
be
able to
yes,
board.
Voodoo Doll. Oh, no.
Oh.
More damage in the ping there. Going to clean this board off nicely. And Staz is starting to mount levels of pressure that Surrender can't really answer right now. Beryllium Nullifier in hand. I discover a mech, and there's Dr. Boom.
Ooh.
I don't think... Oh, no, he
There's
just shuffled the bomb in,
yeah,
right?
there should be
so
one
there'll
bomb.
be 2 boom bots that can go in. Funnily enough, one of them won't go off because it has to trade into a 0-1.
I think his Boom is probably his strongest play, so Surrender's probably thinking what he wants over the next couple turns now, which is why he's deciding between these 3. I don't think Beryllium Nullifier is gonna cut it. So.
Security Rover is normally a fairly strong pick against decks that don't have massive minions, because you can normally get multiple trades a turn because of the way the minion works, which is quite helpful. Oh wait,
did we not count properly?
Probably not. Welcome to casting, Language Hacker. We always miscount things. But yeah, there's plenty of boom bots. I take it all back. Dr. Boom's looking pretty sweet right now.
This is actually interesting.
Wait,
how he wants to trade
he could
these.
just kill Staz next turn, potentially.
That's what I'm saying. These boom bots could do a lot of damage. I'm having flashbacks, Raven.
It's okay, you're safe. You're on the caster desk now. No one can get you here.
One's not what he wanted to see. That? Okay.
So it's like, okay, 2.
So this means there's at least 3 bombs left. So if he managed... Oh, yeah, these bombs are not hitting... Oh, no. Surrender could still win this game. If there's 3 bombs left with 11 cards... Oh, my
you
goodness.
can't believe it. Wait, did he?
Oh, no.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay, bomb pushed him to 10. And there was 2 more bombs in the deck.
Yeah.
So, if Staz doesn't heal, he could just randomly die next turn, regardless of what Surrender does, based on only 9 cards left, 2 of them are bombs. Oops. This could be rough.
There's a defensive play Staz could make that heals him above that. He could play Rotten Apple Bomb and then Conjurer's Calling it, getting the Death Rattle heal, and then getting 2 more 5-drops.
I think if you're considering that, then first protocol for me is always Fire Tree Witch Doctor, because some of the mage spells get some work done in themselves as well.
I'm not sure if there's any lethal options you could find from the Witch Doctor or the Conjurer's Calling. 7 damage on board, 18 health for Surrender.
Observe and reflect.
Double Leroy off of the Scorcher. 12 plus 7.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, do you go for it though, mate?
Oh, probably not.
Yeah, imagine. Staz would be the greatest player in the world. if he did that. Sorry, Hunter Ace. But Staz, if he just jammed Conjurer's Call in and got double Leroy for lethal, I would stand up and applaud. He's just going to push damage. Like, Staz wants to just actually do something to end this game now. And he pings everything off, keeps himself at 10. He does not heal with the Rotten Apple Bomb. And if Surrender Say draws another bomb activator, which he does not, he could have even stacked more pressure.
Oh.
I don't think you can pass.
Yeah, I think you do.
It feels a little bit bad, especially if we see 2 bombs go off now. But I think Surrender's correct not to.
Yeah,
not
this
to
makes a lot of
yet.
sense.
Here we go. Oh! There's one!
There's one more in the deck.
Ooh, okay.
Okay.
Still not bad. And suddenly, this game has been so back and forth. I've not known what to make of it.
I think one of the main turning points was when Staz conjures Calling the 7-man minion and was left with another Astromancer and the Jan'alai.
Yeah.
The fact that the Warpath was able to clear the board, just reset tempo, bought Surrender enough time to get to turn 10, where the Omega Devastators just were able to turn it around. It looked pretty rocky, but it looks like he might be able to squeeze it out. He's not out of the woods just yet. There's still some threats, but...
I think now just... Ooh, so there's tough choices, right? Okay, so now already we remove the Crowd Roaster, remove a minion Conjurer's Call.
Right.
Because they've not got the mana. But the spells, as I said, the mage spells often just get stuff done.
All 3 of these are incredible right now. Ice Barrier buying you some extra health. Power Creation could either get you up some big taunts or perhaps find some chargers. I don't think there's any lifesteal you can get at 6 mana. Flame Strike also almost clears the board. It leaves a 2-3 guard bot from the Security Rover. It looks like he's going for that.
Okay. I was interested. I think, personally, I would have gone for something a bit bigger as a play, because you give your opponent time to just hit you more and you're on 9 health. Like, what's the response? Magic neutralized.
6 damage.
511.
Oh.
It is targetable by Crowd Roaster, but most importantly, not targetable by Conjurer's Calling.
Oh my good. I think he needed that, because there was no way for him to clear the guard bot.
Yeah. Normally Conjurer's Calling can be used as a sort of quasi-removal.
He would have to have gone for Crowd Roaster on the 5/11 and Conjurer's Calling to try to find either a taunt or like an Amani Warbear, some rush. But the Alex Straza gives him a defensive option, back up to 15 health. Even with 9 showing, the extra bomb in the deck would only do 14 damage.
And most importantly as well, there is knowledge that Surrender has no hand apart from 1 card he's going to draw next turn, and his hero power is deal 3, so he's not going to be able to generate a mech next turn as well. So Staz is safe, I'll say, for now, because there's what, 5, 6, 9 damage 100% going to happen next turn from Surrender, and then plus a card. But I don't think many cards deal 6 from hand that Surrender can draw, or many mechs for that matter.
I don't think there's any direct damage left in his deck. I mean,
it would just be magnetic. If you say Omega Assembly into
okay, that's a good draw. He can trade off the Town Crier, Dynomatic, and use the Dynomatic to kill off the Alex Straza.
Oh yeah, Surrender's nodding. Surrender's like, yes, Language Hacker.
I agree.
I agree. That is a good play, sir. Oh, it doesn't even need to.
Oh yeah, you're
got
right.
the zap.
The hero power can zap it.
I disagree, Language Hacker. That was not the play. Okay, so Surrender leaning back and just hoping enough is enough. But now, there's exactly enough mana for Mountain Giant Conjurer's Call, and it is, pretty much straight down the middle whether you get the 7/8 taunt or not. And if he doesn't, though, he's just close to dead.
Yeah. Much more likely to get a taunt from the Mountain Giant Conj Calling than the Crowd Roaster.
Yep. And he doesn't have any other options as far as I can see.
This has been super close. Surrender has set himself up to actually find a way to win the game.
And this is the fear, right? You can have all the stuff in the world versus Warrior, but I feel like the second Dr. Boom hits the board, your cards plus ones you can generate get so much more powerful, because it's not only there are battle cries, but also the stats that are rushable on the board on that turn. So you almost, a Dynomatic is almost a Mountain Giant in a funny roundabout way.
Power, yeah.
It could have, if without the hero power, killed an Alex Straza on its own. So the power level of your deck just jumps so much. Okay, he's going to take down the 3/4.
option.
Well, here we go, Conjurers. a Beryllium Nullifier of his own, and also the Sapper as well, which, if you don't know, it's a 5/8 that every time a minion on your side of the board dies, it deals 2 to face ultimate.
Perfect. Okay. I don't believe there's any heal left for Staz. Oh, I think Surrender happened to see what was drawn before we did. Yeah, there it is.
There's a bomb. That's it. Staz draws the bomb.
Wow.
Surrender put him to 4, and Surrender evens up the series. Both players taking it, to the final cards, and that was a close one. I honestly thought throughout that matchup that both players were going to win about 50 different times. That was so back and forth. And again, though, I feel like the tech choices from Surrender in his secondary deck helped, but I 100% feel like without Dr. Boom, when it was any later, that game was over for Surrender.
Yeah, definitely agree.
So what do you think?
Something that Surrender is looking for.
Okay. Well, let's see how we go in game number 3. Surrender versus Staz 1-1. This is for the first match of their league careers here. Surrender has the BGH, and then Clockwork Goblin, Augmented Elic, and a Shield Slam. So some minions at least to pile on some early pressure. But what are you making of Staz's opening hand here, Language Hacker? Is Staz feeling good?
So with Conjurer's Calling in hand, it's kind of nice because as soon as you stick anything, you can make it. You at least have the option to make 2 of them. No Book of Spectres, and another benefit of having Conjurer's Calling in your hand, twofold. One, it means when you play Malacrass, you have an extra copy of Conjurer's Calling. And 2, you're much less concerned that your Book of Spectres will discard that.
Right, yeah. It's definitely the fear factor. Whenever I'm sure everyone's done who's played this deck, you play Book of Spectres, say on 2, and you're like, just not Conjurer's Calling.
Yeah.
Actually, I'd rather not have a Giant and not draw Conjurer's Calling. That's a fair trade-off. But speaking of Giants, I think they heard me because 2 just came knocking on the door for Staz. So he has 2 in hand now. Next turn he can play 1 flat, but this turn already starting to see a bit of a problem that this deck has. If Surrender or any other deck plays some early minions, you are limited for options, and if you do play stuff out, well, your Giants move further and further into the distance.
Staz opting to ping here. Not a whole lot he can do. I don't think he wants to play out an Ooze. With these 2 Giants in hand, he wants to wait, draw more cards, make them cheaper so that he can pair them with the Conjurer's Calling. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him just play out a Mountain Giant. If he had a Dragon in hand, he could consider coining out the Scale Worm to clear out the Elic. But without a Dragon, I think he just has to wait for these Mountain Giants to come online.
Yeah, I wonder about the ping as well, because the ping to the minion, puts it within range of, say, Ooze. But it's already within range of Scale Worm. It's obviously within range of a Mountain Giant, and the 1 armor might have made a difference when you consider Shield Block, Hero Power, plus 1 armor actually, gets you there for a Giant in terms of a Shield Slam.
Well, that costs 6 mana is the issue.
Oh, I just mean over the course of a couple of turns, because if you don't get to hit him in the face,
true,
then maybe that 1 ping makes it just that little bit easier for Surrender to get to the armor required.
I think he was expecting to play a Mountain Giant this turn, and if the Mountain Giant does come down, the 3 health left over in the Elic can be cleaned up with his Leax perhaps turn after, if he doesn't decide to Conjurer's Calling, or if the Giant gets answered, for example.
Okay, well, the double bomb did shuffle, and if the last game is anything to go by, then these bombs start turning up real quick when Surrender's throwing them out. And we'll see if the same happens again, but Surrender also choosing not to magnetize the Ziliax, wants to trade and push a bit of extra damage to face.
Lets him clear a minion and go face with the Clockwork Goblin, and also means that if Staz has a Voodoo Doll, it's not going to give him a good target now. Voodoo Dolling something with 2 health isn't that appealing, but if it was a 6/5, yeah, okay.
And also as well, you start to just look at Surrender's hand, and there's the Wrench Caliber, which is going to push minimum 3, because he's going to equip it and probably swing it that turn, because it's a bomb. And also 6 more on board means that I think Staz wanted to play a Giant, saw this turn, is now thinking about not playing a Giant because he's scared. But I also think he maybe should have played a Giant anyway and just said, well, if you clear it off, you probably have to use minions. And that's fine. But instead of going with Ziliax, it does mean that there's the Giant next turn into coin, Conjurer's Calling can happen. So playing a little bit slower, but slow isn't always bad.
I think with the Big Game Hunter techs, if Staz plays out in a Mountain Giant and just gets Big Game Huntered, with Surrender already having minions on board, it can become a real problem, because that's how the early damage adds up, and then the bomb chips start to get you. This way, he guarantees an extra minion when he plays the Giant. He can Giant coin Conjurer's Calling for 7 mana here with a coin. That way, even with Big Game Hunter, there's still a secondary minion left on the board that Surrender has to deal with, and if he doesn't, the second Conjurer's Calling can come out.
He's actually not going to Conjurer's Calling. He's going to remove the weapon. Doesn't want to die, doesn't want to lose another game to bombs right now. But I think as well, it's purely because he has Giant number 2 in hand.
Agreed.
So he can actually Giant and do the same turn, except just 1 mana more expensive the following time.
Again, keeping Big Game Hunter in mind, Staz's play, if Surrender has a Big Game Hunter, Big Game Hunter comes down, what else can Surrender do for 2 mana? Not a whole lot. You're probably not Shield Slamming an Ooze. So this way, you get rid of the weapon, you get rid of the extra bomb being shuffled into your deck, and this also lets you clean up the Clockwork Goblin in the case of, say, a Big Game Hunter.
Okay, well, let's see how it plays out then, because Surrender does have Dr. Boom, or Blastmaster Boom, sorry.
Right.
I will differentiate those two a little bit better going forward, as I believe we are going to be seeing a lot of them. But he's just going to get that Big Game Hunter down. You know, this is literally what it's for, killing off a Giant, and especially when it's not been Conjurer's Call, that's about as good as it's going to get in this matchup. Is just going to push a bit more damage to face, though, and ignore the use. I like it.
Staz still has the option to go Giant Coin Conjurer's Calling. With 1 Big Game Hunter gone, you probably want to see, alright, how much armor does Surrender have to work with? Is it possible that if I do this, the Giant can get answered, and then the board can try to deal with the rest of what Staz is developing? But I think with the Ooze setup, this means that the Giant Coin Conjure is going to be very difficult to answer. Even with a Shield Slam, there's going to be a second half left over.
I think for me as well is because Hexlord Malacras has a Conjurer's Calling in the pool, just do it. Like, you know, if he gets you again and clears everything off, well, you have the second version of the Conjurer's Call from the Twin Spell effect, and then you Malacras and get another Conjurer's Call, and there's another one still in the deck. So I feel like, you know, you don't want to wait for Surrender to get Boom. You want to just accelerate this game, and I feel like maybe that's the change in game plan from Staz, or the change I would like to see, is him to be way more aggressive and say, okay, if you've got the odd piece of removal here and there, fine, but as long as you don't draw Boom on curve, I can actually pressure you way, way more. And that's what he's doing right now.
Second Big Game Hunter draw is actually very big for Surrender. This is the second Giant he's seen come down, so if he deals with this, the Conjurer's Calling, while still useful, are going to have, you know, fewer targets, or the minions that Staz develops that he wants the Conjurer's Calling are going to be a bit easier to deal with.
So it's a big, big Game Hunter.
Yeah, it's a big Game Hunter.
1 mana off a really nice turn.
Yeah.
Like,
being able to weave in the shield block and a shield slam
would have been so
that'd be a pretty
sick.
big swing. But the important thing to note again is that Surrender's not dying. Obviously, Staz has a board now, but the Big Game Hunter is buying him enough time to get to the point where he can actually play Omega Devastators and then start taking back tempo.
He's just going to go for the armor up and get the trade off. He would have obviously loved to have the mana to do the shield block instead and save the 3/3, but still, that is just one huge set of threats gone for Staz, and Surrender's feeling happy. At worst, he has a 4/2 that we've seen that he's been taking opportunities when possible to actually push face as much as he can. The only problem now is, outside of the shield block, Surrender's getting a little bit dry, and it's something that happened in the previous game as well. He did run out of resources, and really, the Boom was all that was keeping him in it. He would have got stomped if he didn't get Boom when he did.
Not a whole lot Staz can do this turn. It's just one minion at a time, unfortunately. He could go Conjurer's Calling on a weaker minion, a 5-drop, but I'm not sure if that's what he wants to do. I think he wants to make something bigger. He does have another Conjurer's Calling, obviously, in the Hexlord, and another one in the deck, but I think you need more... You need bigger things on board. I don't think medium things will get there.
Yeah, I was considering it would be slow, but the Dragon Ball Scorcher plus Ping at least gives you a clean 3/5 on the board. The problem is it is weak to Dynamatic. And so he did just go with the Astromancer instead and got a pretty good one. Sunwalker means that there's going to be something else along with extra damage for this Big Game Hunter to do anything else now.
1 mana off from Surrender's point to be able to deal with this with just Warpath. So it's not quite an option yet.
He can still Warpath once, play Town Crier, get the
Militia Commander?
Militia Commander and clear the board, right?
You'd have to Warpath twice. The first... Oh, yeah, the Militia
Commander
can
kills
hit
the
Sunwalker.
4/5,
Yep.
and then the 4/2 Big Game Hunter goes into 5/5.
And Surrender's already played the Ziliax, so he knows that
Yeah,
the Militia Commander is
100%.
guaranteed.
Yeah, 100% out pull from the Town Crier. I mean, it feels a little bit bad to use the Warpath, but I feel like in the previous game, Surrender got very fortunate to be able to actually Warpath clear boards. So I think I like this. It utilizes resources, he draws cards.
And it puts you ahead on the board.
Yeah, exactly, and he has something exists on the board for him. And Staz has to start from scratch again, and I think that's really powerful.
Ooh. I like this a lot. So this, from Surrender's point, pushes, A, it pushes damage, B, it leaves even more on board. He's using the Shield Slam very offensively here, not defensively. I believe Staz is only running one copy of Dragonmaw Scorcher.
Yeah.
So Surrender's saying, all right, well, Dragonmaw Scorcher is pretty good here, but if you don't have it, I'm pushing a lot of damage. This gives me a way to win.
And if you do have it, even, we were talking about this before, but Dragonmaw Scorcher Ping, right, clears the board fantastic. But even with Conjurer's Calling, they're only 5 drops. So they're about as manageable as a minion's going to get that gets conjured in this deck.
So this is Surrender setting up for Blastmaster Boom. I believe there's 2 bombs in the deck, 4 boom bots popping out.
Can even get a cheeky draw as well, shield block first, depending on what he draws.
Right.
And then decide. He can still just play Boom afterwards or not.
There must be a way.
Staz just taking his time now. He needs to work out what he wants to do, but the Dragonmaw Scorcher seems pretty good to me, but he's going to avoid it.
Oh, this is interesting. He did just see a Warpath. Oh,
So
he's
he
choosing
wants
Ping
to,
here.
he has to, right? He's only on 9 mana.
Oh,
So
you're right.
yeah, but what this is a bit. Okay. So you were completely correct. He saw the Warpath, which means that this 2/1 is very safe, and the reason this 2/1 is a threat is because it costs 7 mana. So he can Conjurer's Call the Giggling Inventor, summon some 7 drops, but Surrender just picked up the Warpath number 2, so he can still Warpath and get some work done here and play the Boom.
It's still a little awkward with the commander left at 1 health, because if it was at 2 health, for example, the Warpath could go off once, the commander could clean up something, and then play the Blastmaster Boom. Another possibility is playing the Blastmaster Boom and then Warpathing, but I believe you want the Boom bots on board.
Yeah, and because you don't have Rush, you want them down to just choose targets next turn.
Right.
I like this. That's some Boom bots.
I don't know how we keep miscounting these bombs left in the deck.
We're just bad. We're just bad at bomb counting. We'll get the mouse moved in a second on the spectator for you guys, as we're just hovering over. Yes, that is a Boom bot, we remember. So Death Rattle deal 1 to 4 damage, and maybe win the game, maybe not, as we saw from Surrender last game.
Staz having 10 mana to work with now.
Be a way.
No Voodoo Doll in sight. This Blastmaster Boom looks like it's sticking, at least for now. You could try Unseen Saboteuring, hoping maybe there's a Brawl in Surrender's hand. Malacross
It's
doesn't
tough,
do a
isn't
whole
it,
lot.
just with the 1 card. Ugh. I did wonder last turn, and hindsight and such, I did wonder whether Dragonmaw Scorcher, leave the 1/1 on the board and just play Rotten Apple Bomb as well was decent, just to put multiple minions
He
down.
had 9 mana.
Oh yeah, I told you he had 9
Yeah.
mana. God,
He could have gone Dragonmaw Scorcher Conch Calling to just
That's
put
true,
something.
that's true, yeah. It's in a similar vein, yeah. Oh, here we go. Boom, 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 boom.
Oh boy.
Someone carry on the lyrics at
I
home.
expect he's gonna follow up with a Rotten Apple. Oh my goodness.
So hard it froze the screen for a second there, but that is a lot of damage. Staz falls.
The server wasn't ready for that many bombs.
Oh, follows up with a Rotten Apple Bomb. Omega Assembly is a great pickup for Surrender. Not the best mechs in the world, but still it just gives him stuff to do.
Apple Bomb will heal him up to 12, so it's at least
Remember,
3 bombs.
there's 3 bombs in the deck.
Yeah, 12 is enough.
Jeez.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
I don't expect Surrender is going to be spending his mana playing this Steambot this turn, so I think he's going to want to draw with Shield Block, find something else to do. These are a little underwhelming. If he happens to find something like an Omega Devastator, he can use that on the Rotten Apple Bomb.
I think Steambot might not be so bad post-draw because it does defend the Boom.
True.
And at the moment, 7 damage is just almost lethal.
So the Spark coming down from the...
Yeah, I think I like this actually.
Yeah.
Trade off the Sparks.
Actually, this does make sense, yeah.
Yeah, because then the Boom's safe. It's safe from ping. There isn't a lot of removal in the deck apart from like Voodoo Dolls, for example.
Which he knows that Staz doesn't have, so this denies maybe a Scale Worm coming out and being able to clear off the Boom.
He's already seen the Dragon Maw because it's on the board, so he can't Dragon Maw ping again. I like it.
Observe
Could book a Spectres to try and find a Voodoo Doll to clean up that Blastmaster Boom. Otherwise, I don't see how else it's getting cleared. He could Conjurer's Calling the Steambot, but that puts more power into the board, even though it lets you get to the Boom.
It's really tough, isn't it? Suddenly, just once again, even without Dr. Boom, the hero version, he's putting a lot of pressure, and I'm not sure how, but Staz just isn't sticking big minions. It's tough. Like, Surrender's done a great job of keeping this clean and wrestling for the board every single turn.
I think Staz might have been taking it a bit too slowly on some of these turns. Even the Giggling Inventor, which is a 2-turn setup, it leaves him open to some ways that Surrender can just take control of the board, and this is what happens. Like, if Staz had more health to work with, the board that Surrender has can be dealt with over time, but Surrender using his tools offensively and being able to push damage with that one turn we saw him use Shield Slam on oh boy. 7, 8, 9, 10. 11.
Even better though, he can still put him within lethal range and clear the board, right? Which is going to be key. Because he can deal 7 goes to face.
Yeah. I don't see a world where that's trading.
Yeah, I think the Super Collider is going to hit though.
So just to decide how much of the of his board he wants to use for trading.
Yeah, I think if you Super Collide the 6/6, it hits whatever. Doesn't really matter. It goes down to 2. You can put the 2/1 into the Temple Enforcer, I'm going to call it. And then, so that's cleaned up, and then you can just go face with the rest. Oh, so he's gonna save the damage and put 2 minions in. I don't know if you needed to do this. Oh,
ooh, this could be. I want him to swing with the Blastmaster Boom if he's gonna play the automatic. I think that Blastmaster Boom is not a mech.
Blastmaster Boom is not a mech. Let's see if Surrender remembers at this second in time realizes that he could be. There we go. Okay. I was like, please don't lose this game because of that.
I'm sure he
that
remembered.
Would be savage.
Yeah, I think he was deciding: do I want to actually set him to 5, or can I win by just continuing to clear the board?
I think here, Surrender bailed out of the decision. I think he slightly messed up because, for me, there's no reason not to take 6 there and keep a 1/3 on the board.
Right.
There's no reason. Look at his health.
As much tempo as you want. Yeah.
Look at his health. It's like he's got plenty. He could be minus 3 extra now and be fine. So I think Surrender made a midway through sort of divergent path in his decision making and bailed out, and whether that comes back to bite him, we're going to find out probably pretty quickly right now. But at the end of the day, there are bombs in the deck, and Staz is on a number that adds up to a bomb.
Drawing can be scary. The Book of Spectres doesn't...
Harrison Jones!
Yeah.
He's doing it. I think he has to.
I believe he has to.
Shake of the head. Surrender. By
Bomb.
the first one off the top as well. Boom. Boom. There we go. Surrender takes his first match of Grandmasters. 2-1. Very close series.